Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our Becoming Witch interviews. Today, we're going to be talking with Sapphire. Yay!
Hi!
And as everybody knows, if you've been watching the interviews, that we are discussing, or I'm talking with witches who have experienced a transition and or stagnation in their craft. Sapphire is one of those individuals, and she's willing to speak with me today in regards to her experience.
Yes.
So as I like to begin, we'll begin with what inspired you or drew you into research, study witchcraft?
Well, when I was younger, I grew up in California, and my dad is a practicing heathen, and my mom has always been interested in like the more occult side of things. She's a Christian, but she also likes things that are like runes. She likes sage. She burns sage on a regular basis. She still burns incense, like that sort of things. So I grew up with kind of like a knowledge of what was going on without even realizing what was going on.
Right.
And then when I moved out here, we started going to a Methodist church on a regular basis. And when I started raising questions, I got told, oh, well, that's because we told you so, or that's because the Bible says that. And it started making me realize, well, I like being able to ask questions. So I, probably around the age of 13, I reconnected with my dad's side of everything, and I just started doing a lot of research. I got really heavy into like Slavic practices. I got really heavy into Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology, and that was kind of just my running start.
So you went from California to where you're at. Where is it that you're at now?
I am in North Carolina.
Okay.
So I flew all the way across the nation.
That's a big difference. Even just
It is.
Knowing even just the East Coast to the West Coast, from my own personal experience, there's a energy difference, there's attitude difference, and I'm sure the Carolinas different than
first thing that I noticed from the flight, so we flew in during the Hurricane Ophelia. So this was back in 2005, and the first thing that I noticed was the amount of greenery on the ground, and I thought they were all bushes because we were just so high up. I was only like 9 at the time. And my first words were, Mom, look at all the green. Like, it's so green here. Because where I'm from originally, like, we had brown grassy hills.
Yeah. So that's going to really change everything for you.
It turned a lot upside down.
So when you first started studying, how old were you?
Well, when I first really got like heavy into this is what I want to do with my life, I was about 13, going on 14. So I was still like middle school, kind of beginning my teenage years.
Right.
So
when did you adopt the label or the identity of witch?
I was in high school. I was what you can consider still in like the broom closet. Okay. I didn't really tell a lot of people. My middle school experience kind of settled that for me. So I wanted to tell my friends in middle school, but that was back when Charmed was popular and like all of the TV shows. So it kind of got like harshed on if you kind of came out of the broom closet. So I waited, and I was in high school when I started adopting the term. And I was kind of iffy on it because I was still trying to discover who I was personally. Mm-hmm. But I came out of the broom closet officially like my senior year.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, how long ago was that for you?
Well, I am 25 now, so probably, oh God, I can't do math right now. Like 7, 8 years
ago. Okay, so it's been a while. It's been a while.
It has been.
And when you think about when you were first really practicing, if you hindsight and all, what type of witchcraft were you practicing? What was the majority of your craft focused on? Or what type of witchcraft were you practicing?
So my first book that I ever came across was actually on my mom's bookshelf, and it's called White Magic.
Okay.
So I started getting into that, and then when I started learning about mythology, I was drawn towards Aphrodite.
Okay.
Long story short, that's how I have a kid now. But I started practicing with her. She was my first patron goddess that I was working with. I did a lot of self-love spells back then when I was trying to find out who I was. I was trying to discover just who was I? Like, what
Right.
is this purpose that I'm supposed to be doing? And so when I was working with her, it was a lot of trying to discover my role with everything. So
And
it
that,
wasn't necessarily like spells or like
okay.
crafts. I think the most intense spell that I did was maybe like a bath, but
Okay.
that was about it.
And I think I know the book you're talking about, that book, White Magic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think I
Big
know what
gold letters.
I was just going to say. Was it actually a white book with gold letters on it?
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what book you're talking about. And if I remember, that book was really, I mean, there was, if I remember, there was spells in it, but it was
Yes.
more, um, it was, it was more altruistic. It was healing. It was, like you said, self exploration in that book. It really, so I'm just trying to get a sense of the type of witchcraft or the perspective of witchcraft you had, because we all come from a very different perspective. And
Oh
if
yeah.
Charmed was big at the time, that was really, doing witchcraft for others to save people. It
Yes,
was more.
and that was one of the shows that I absolutely detested at the time because I was just like, this isn't what I'm doing, and I don't associate with this at all. And then I'd go home and I would try to scry in a bowl of water.
Oh, so you were doing scrying and things. Oh,
I
wait.
was
You
I
doing
was
scrying
trying to
as
learn.
we understand scrying, or is how they did it in the show scrying?
It was according to the book, the White
Okay.
Magic book, and it was very hard for me to accomplish. I have
Okay.
yet to accomplish it to this day,
Okay.
but I did get very big into tarot cards.
Oh,
So I've been reading those since I was 15.
okay. So you have some divination in there. So it wasn't just, I mean, it wasn't just, healing baths for you. There was other aspects in there for you.
Yes,
So,
I've tried quite a bit. I try to my philosophy is you have to try it before you realize if you like it or not.
right.
So when I was younger, especially, and I still try to do it now, it's kind of a goal that I set for myself. I have to at least do something new that I haven't experienced yet.
Okay. And you were doing that when you first started too, right? Well, because you hadn't
Mm-hmm.
experienced much, obviously, if you were new to witchcraft, right? So like maybe a typical day for you in your magical world, what would that include? I mean, were you actively doing tarot very frequently, or was that, once in a while?
Well, the school I was going to at the time banned tarot cards because it was considered gambling. Never understood that one. So I would practice at home. I would read my cards for my parents and maybe a few friends if they came over. I would read cards for them. Most of the time, I mostly just kept like a journal with me, and I would journal my dreams that I had. I would try to do the moon phases, keep up with that. Try to learn some astrology. Like I would just try to like research things and just learn.
Okay. And when you finally identified as witch, whether it was to just yourself or to other people, were you doing spells at the time? Were you doing rituals, or was it just what you had been doing all along?
It was so when I started kind of declaring myself as a witch, it was during like a bit of like a resurgence in me period. So, it was definitely during a time that I was doing more rituals than I had previously been doing. I felt more comfortable in the skin that I was in. I felt comfortable in the invocations that I was saying. Like, I definitely felt more confident in what I was doing.
Okay.
But at the same time, I definitely didn't understand what I was doing to a full extent.
Yeah.
So
So were you mostly practicing solitary, or did you have groups that you would go to, or did you have any other pagan or witchy friends?
I was all on my own. So I did not go to my first group gathering. My first one was last Yuletide. So 2019 was the first time I met other people who were similar to me.
Okay.
Before that, I've been by myself. The only experience that I've had communicating with other people is like YouTube or via forums. I used to be really big on forums. And I would just constantly ask for advice and see what other people were doing and that sort of stuff.
Okay. So transition and stagnation. What did you have a transition, or was it just a period of sort of dormancy for you?
I have had a significant transition. So I had a pretty big, I plateaued a little bit, if we can put it in more general terms. Around the time of like 2016, it was around the time that I got pregnant. I really didn't know what I was doing with my life. I had moved from Virginia to here. So I had just made another big move. I was attempting to go to college. I didn't get in, obviously. So it was definitely a plateau of my spirituality at the time. But then after I had my son and I went through postpartum, I forced myself to get back into myself. Essentially, I started meditating more. That's how it started, was just you need to meditate. And then it became, okay, let's find a new goddess. Aphrodite's not working out for me anymore, obviously. So during that time I found Bastet and I started practicing with her more. I then forced myself to go to my first ritual, my community event. And then once I went to my first one, I didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going and going. And the whole 2019 was just me shedding a bunch of stuff that was just not me anymore. And it was definitely intense because not only did I shed a lot of beliefs that I had, I also shed the partner that I was with, and a bunch of other things happened and changed, and I started school, and it was literally once I started finding myself again, things started falling back into place.
Yeah. And I definitely, from personal experience as well, postpartum depression is no
It's rough.
joke. Is no
Yeah.
joke. Is no joke. But we can even take just the, that specifically, postpartum. But we can even expand that in any sort of depression, any sort of experience that you have with that energy is definitely going to affect everything in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes perfect sense to me why you would have a plateau or just a sort of like a dormancy, because it's sucking everything into that hopelessness and helplessness. And I don't know about you, but my postpartum included anger and guilt and,
Yes.
oh my God, everything.
Every emotion you can humanly feel, you feel during that time. And then it was just on top of me not knowing who I was anymore, it was just doubled instantly. Because then it was, well, I'm not just angry at you or the world, I'm also angry at myself now.
Yeah.
So it was rough to get through, and I'm very thankful I made the transition and the growth that I did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one. And Bastet is good for that, isn't she?
She
She's
is. She has
amazing for
gotten me
that.
through a lot.
Yeah. She's amazing for that. So during that transition, during the whole having the baby, making the move and all that stuff, did you still identify as witch, or were you questioning that as well?
Before I started making the transition that I was, so before I started meditating on a regular, I didn't necessarily identify as it as much. I still called myself a witch just because it was just what I was used to at the time. but I definitely didn't feel the spiritual connection to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. For me, the postpartum depression, I was Christian. I was Christian at the time. So, but yeah, because that's a darkness. That definitely is. So you talked about, meditating being the first thing you really got you into, then sort of climbing out of that. What sparked you to actually meditate?
Well, I actually have generalized anxiety and chronic depression already. I've had it since I was a kid. And that was one of the things that I had remembered got me through a lot of things, that a lot of lows that I would feel. So when I would get to that point, something in my brain was just like, you know what feels really good right now? Just to sit in a quiet room and do absolutely nothing. And that was what got me.
Wow. So yeah. And that makes sense, because then that's sort of the gateway to get you into everything else. That makes
Yeah, because
perfect
once
sense.
you sit still and you realize, oh, this feels really good. Why did I stop doing this? I need
Right.
to do this more.
Right. That you're right. I mean, I definitely agree. So how long was it? You said 2018 or 19, or when was it that the transition sort of started, like you
So
started coming out of that?
I had my son in November of 2017,
17.
and I didn't really start coming out of it until maybe around May of 2019.
Oh, so that was just recently.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
a
I
little
went
over
through
a year then.
all of 2018 just not okay. And
Yeah.
then 2019 hit, and I started getting just new feelings and just trying to force myself to find myself again.
Right. And I'm sure that the community that you found going to these groups must have helped. The support.
It did. It did. And when I found people that not everybody has the same ideas as me, I get that. And
Mhm.
that's one of the unique and beautiful things about our community is because you can ask the same question to 20 different people and you can get 20 different responses.
Sure thing.
And it was just really nice to be able to walk into a room and be like, all these people accept me.
And I don't know about you, but there's something about walking into a group and, saying ritual, and everybody, even if their rituals are different, they know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's
Yes.
there's nothing like that. Um,
Yes. And then I found she is here local. Her name is Maven Ellerthigh. She actually just recently adopted me into her family, PHAMILY. And it's been nothing but open doors left and right for me ever since.
nice. That's got to be nice.
It's really fun. It's really fun.
So, if you look at your craft now, your practice now, how would you label your witchcraft now? Before you sort of said, the white magic kind of thing. What about now?
Um, I would definitely. I'm still eclectic,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay.
I'm still mostly a scholar in everything, if I want to label it, just
Okay.
because I'm more into researching. Lately, I've been researching the Kabbalah and alchemy, and I've been trying to get more into like ceremonial magic. I want to learn more of the history of everything, like why we do some of the things we do.
Mhm.
Um, Back when I was going to school, I was actually going for archaeology so I can study pagan people. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I still want to learn about. And I found out that you don't have to have a PhD to learn about it. So
Right.
I'm definitely, my label would be more of a scholar right now. I do
Okay.
practice, I do celebrate Sabbats, I go do rituals, I go do spells with people, I participate in things. But at home, aside from my altar, I just like to read a lot.
Okay. But you do practice, as you just said. So, um,
Yes.
And so then with your altar, do you interact with your altar on a, daily, weekly, monthly? Is there an interaction between you and your altar?
There is. So my altar is actually a glass display case with 4 shelves, and
Okay.
I keep all of my stones and crystals in it. I keep my altar space on top of it. I light incense every day. I burn a little bit of sage every day. I actually keep my tanked pets. I have a gecko and a tarantula. I keep them next to the altar space so they can kind of be included in it. Me and my son, we play with all the crystals that I have. We learn about it, all sorts of stuff.
Okay. So there's definitely some form of doing, not just reading and studying. You have some, it sounds like you have some sort of activity, some sort of, interaction. So when you look at your craft when you first started and you look at your craft today, what are the common threads that have still maintained, something either you did or something you believed or something you practiced in the beginning that still carries through now as you're more transitions, you evolved into what you are today?
I think the biggest thing would definitely have to be a mixture of the meditation that I do. I've gotten significantly better at it just because I've been persistent. But aside from the meditation, I think one of the few things that's really stuck with me this whole time has mostly just been trying to connect to self and having to feel the power within that I have to feel in order to create and manifest what I want to manifest.
Yeah,
that's definitely stuck with me.
I think, don't you think that that's really an important part of identifying as witch, is that personal power? Yeah. I don't know if we could do much without embracing that within us. So then everything else almost is different for you when you first started to now?
Yeah, a lot have changed. So when I first started, I believed in threefold law.
Oh, yeah.
So I was definitely more of a healer. I wanted to do things that helped. I wanted to promote, oh, well, the more good I do, the more good I receive back. And over the years, it's definitely changed into more of a middle path, I guess you could say, to where you don't necessarily have to be good all the time, but you do have to be in the right. You have to be just. You have to understand that what you do does have consequences,
Right.
but what other people do for you or against you or with you, that's on their own conscience, and you have to be aware of that.
Right, right. There's just
Sorry, I
because
don't know if you can hear him crying.
I
I
can.
apologize.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. He just woke up from a nap.
I figured. I'm sure, I mean, that white magic book I know talked about threefold law in that. And there's definitely an understanding of consequences, whether you believe it's threefold or not. There's definitely that understanding that everything we say, everything we do, everything we think has sort of an effect on everything else, right? So to sort of wrap everything up for everybody, what sort of advice would you give another witch that might be going through a transition or some plateau or stagnation?
I I think my best advice I can give would be self-reflection. You can't get through a dark period without understanding that you yourself, you're not moving. Everything around you is going to change, but you yourself need to understand where you stand around that change. So you can't move past it without understanding, okay, this is my role, this is my place, this is who I am, this is who they are, that kind of thing. So definitely my biggest recommendation would be understanding who you are, and the best way to do that is through self-reflection and meditation.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, yeah. That sounds good to me. Because once you do that self-reflection meditation, you'll get some answers that can sort of drive you to what your next step would be.
Definitely. And honestly, like with a lot of the things that I've heard and I've seen in my personal experiences within this craft is it just takes that one stepping stone. And that's all you need.
Yeah.
So once you find that stepping stone, you can take off running. It's great.
It is, isn't it? Well, I want to thank you for talking with me, Sapphire. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And, any links that she has or any places that you can find her, I'll make sure I put that in the information section of this video so you can find Sapphire, because creating community is what I'm looking to do here. So
Awesome.
thank you so much. And everyone who is watching, thank you for joining us today, and keep your eyes out for more interviews. And remember, I love you. Blessed be everyone.
Bye.